नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवतिरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। शृण्वतां स्वकतकृष्णपुण्यश्रवणकीर्तन हृदयन्तस्थो ह्यभद्राणि विदुनोति सुहृत्सताम्। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 15, text 37 to 40. तांस्तान् आपततः कृष्णो रामश्च नृपलीलया गृहीतपश्चाश्चरणन् प्राहिनो तृणराजसु। तांस्तान् आपततः कृष्णो रामश्च नृपलीलया गृहीतपश्चाश्चरणान् प्राहिनो तृणराजसु। तांस्तान् आपततः कृष्णो रामश्च नृपलीलया गृहीतपश्चाश्चरणान् प्राहिनो तृणराजसु. Synonyms: tan, all of them, one by one. Apatatah, attacking. Krishna, Lord Krishna. Rama, Lord Balaram. Cha, and. Nripa, O king. Leelaya, easily. Grihita, seizing. Paschascharan, their hind legs. Prahinot, through. Trinarajasu, into the palm trees. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation: O king, as the demons attacked, Krishna and Balaram easily seized them one after the other by their hind legs and threw them all into the tops of the palm trees. Text 38. Falah prakara sankirnam daitya dehairgatashubihi raraja bhusa talagrair ganair iva nabasthalam. Falah prakara sankirnam daitya dehairgatashubihi raraja bhusa talagrair ganair iva nabasthalam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation: The earth then appeared beautifully covered with heaps of fruits and with dead bodies of the demons which were entangled in the broken tops of the palm trees. Indeed, the earth shone like the sky decorated with clouds. Purport: According to Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakura, the bodies of the demons were dark, like dark blue clouds, and the large quantity of blood that had flowed from their bodies appeared like bright red clouds. Thus, the whole scene was very beautiful. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, in His various forms such as Rama and Krishna, is always transcendental, and when He enacts His transcendental pastimes, the result is always beautiful and transcendental, even when the Lord performs violent acts like killing the stubborn as demons. Text 39. Tayostat sumahat karma nishamya vibudadayah mumuchuh pushpa varshani chakrur vadhyani tushtuhu. Tayoho, of the two brothers, tat, that, sumahat, very great, karma, act, nishamya, hearing of, vibudya adayaha, the demigods and other elevated living beings, mumuchuhu, they released, pushpa varshani, downpours of flowers, chakruhu, they performed, Vadyani, music, Tushtuhu, they offered prayers. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: Hearing of this magnificent feat of two brothers, the demigods and other elevated living beings rained down flowers and offered music and prayers in glorification. Purport: Srila Sanatana Goswami comments that the demigods, great sages, and other exalted beings were all astonished and ecstatic upon hearing the unusually swift and nonchalant way in which Krishna and Balaram killed the very powerful ass demon in the Tal forest. Text 40. Atattala falanyadhan manushya gadasadvasaha trinam cha pashvasascherur hatadenuka kanane. Hatha, then, tala, of the palm trees, falani, the fruit, adan, ate, Manushyaha, the human beings, Gata Sadvasaha, having lost their fear, Trinam, upon the grass, Cha, and Pashvaha, the animals, Cheruhu, grazed, Hatha, killed, Denuka, of the demon Denuka, Kanane, in the forest. Translation: people now felt free to return to the forest where Denuka had been killed, and without fear they ate the fruits of the palm trees. Also, the cows could now graze freely upon the grass here. Purport: according to the Acharyas, the low-class people such as Pulindas ate the fruits of the palm trees, but Krishna's cowherd boyfriends considered them undesirable since they had been tainted with blood of the asses. नमो ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. I humbly bow down to all the Simul Vaishnavas. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to purify myself. So we are in the 10th canto, 15th chapter, text 37 to 40. So this passage is titled The Killing of Denuka, the Ass Demon. So just to set the scene in terms of where this is happening, so this is all happening in Vraja, in the Vraja Leela, where Krishna has reached Pauganda stage. So till the age of 5, it's Balya Leela, and now he has entered into Pauganda. So till now, Krishna was allowed to graze, allowed to take the calf for grazing. But now he has become of 6 years of age, so he's been given this duty of like herding cows. And what they typically do is Balaram and Krishna, they go to the lush green pastures of Vrindavan, and they take the cows and they let them graze, and all his friends, Sridhama, Sudhama, Subala, and then Stoka Krishna, all these friends, they all gather together, and then they have very fun and loving pastimes. So sometimes if Balaram is tired, he will lay on top of Krishna, and then Krishna will massage his foot. And then similarly, when Krishna is tired, the other cowherd boys will form a lap around him, and then they will sing songs to him, and then they will enjoy. They will have very beautiful pastimes that way. So this area of this pastime of killing of Dhenukasura happens when Krishna and Balaram were having such a nice pastime. So they were talking about all the glorious things they did the previous day, and how the cows were having good time grazing and everything. But now Sudama, Sridhama, and Stoka Krishna and Subala, they all came, and they said, there is this forest called Talavan. And I've heard that there are beautiful tal trees in the Talavan forest, and the sweet aroma is so tempting that anybody going there is so captivated to go and have these tal fruits. But you know what, Krishna and Balaram? This place is guarded by an ass demon. So his name is Denuka. He's so fierce. So if anybody even goes past there, like he catches hold of them and then just throws them out of that place. So can we go and take some tal fruits from that? I've heard that it's so beautiful and so tasty. So then Krishna and Balaram are always very pleasing to their devotees, and when their friends, close associates, they ask, they never say no. So they said, okay, let's go. And then they all went to Talavan forest, and Balaram is extremely strong. Of all the people, like he's very strong and physically very strong. So what Balaram did is, so all this is explained in the Krishna book. So if anybody gets a chance, like we should all read that particular chapter from the Krishna book. It's very interesting. So Balaram goes and shakes this tal tree, and there's a whole bunch of tals which are falling down from the tree. And immediately this Dhenukasura, he senses that somebody has entered this, and he comes running towards Balaram, and it's mentioned he puts his head away from Balaram, takes his hind legs, and then kicks Balaram. So Balaram, he catches hold of Dhenukasura and then throws him and then whirls him up on top of a palm tree. And then Dhenukasura goes so high, and then it's mentioned that the force with which Balaram threw, it actually took down like hundreds and thousands of tal trees completely, because of the force with which Dhenukasura went and hit a tal tree, and then he was on top of the tal tree. So there is lot of interesting things we can understand from this particular Leela. So this name Denuka, right? So Sanskrit is a very wonderful language. So the advantage with Sanskrit is everything has a root word. And then the root word, if you understand the meaning, then the meaning completely dissolves and you understand what it is. So Denuka is actually, the meaning of Denu is nourishing. So a person who is supposed to be nourishing is called Denuka. But he become an Asura. Why? So the answer is, so when we have this nourishing nature, instead if we don't give it and guard it, then we become obstinate and we become a donkey. So that's the meaning which with Dhenukasura is like telling us, right? So interestingly, so what happens is Balaram throws him on top of the palm tree, and Dhenukasura is dead. He's gone, and now all these different associates of Dhenukasura, they all come and they start fighting with Krishna and Balaram. And Krishna and Balaram, they catch hold of them, kill all of them, and at this point, it's mentioned in the verse we read, the entire place looked like a panoramic scene. Like the Denuka, all these donkeys are like purplish, dark blue in color, and all the tall trees are laid with these different donkeys on top of them, and then there's blood oozing from them, and it looks like some red color paint all over these trees. So it looks like very panoramic. And it's also mentioned how these demigods, they showered blessings on Krishna and Balaram when this happened. So one question, so do we know all the demons which are killed by Balaram in the Vrajalila? So we know Krishna killed multiple demons. Krishna killed Putana, Chakatasura, Agasura, Bakasura. But Balaram killed a few demons. Do we know all the demons?
That is Bali Maharaj.
Right.
Prahlad Maharaj and he is the...
No, but Balaram killed 2 demons. Only 2 demons he killed in the Vrajalila. So those demons are, one is Dhenukasura and the other is Pralambasura. So in Chaitanya Sikshamrita, where Bhaktivinoda Thakur, our 7th Acharya, he's written all these demons in the Vrajalila, he's given anarthas for them, right? So all the anarthas they represent is actually explained by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And then Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur, Saraswati Thakur like exemplified on them. But the demon which is represented by Dhenukasura, the anartha which is represented by Dhenukasura is called the false prestige, or the obstinate or foolish nature we get when we get this material intelligence with which we think we can control everything, right? So that foolish intelligence is represented by Dhenukasura. And Balaram killed this. So there is a link for all these things. So Balaram is called the Guru Tattva, right? So what does Guru do? He is Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya. So he removes this ignorance, which is the foolish nature which we think we control everything, right? So that Guru takes that away. And that's what Balaram does here. Balaram kills Dhenukasura because Dhenukasura represents that particular nature in us where we use this foolish intelligence and think that we are the controller of everything. So that reminds me of this particular verse from the 9th chapter. Lord Shri Krishna says, Mogasha Moga Karmano Moga Jnana Vichetasaha Rakshasi Masurim Chaiva Prakriti Mohinim Shritaha. So Krishna says, Mogasha Moga Karmano Moga Jnana Vichetasaha. There are people who are bewildered. Who are those? Mogasha. People who are after sense gratification. So it's mentioned that how much ever you try to satisfy the senses will never get satisfied, and you need more and more and more. So we see this in day to day, right? When we see one reel, it gets it into 2 reels, 3 reels, and then we continuously get into this habit of watching this for hours together, right? So this is the nature of this material world, where you get entangled. It's very difficult to get past them. So that is Mogasha. Moga Karmano. These are people who are just attached to the activities of doing. They just want to do things one after the other with expecting like phalam, right? All the fruits of it. So that's Moga Karmano. And Moga Jnana. So these are people who don't want to achieve the supreme destination or Krishna, but they're always interested in the empirical mental speculations. So these are Moga Jnana. Vichetasaha. These are people who are bewildered. Rakshasi Masurim Chaiva Prakriti Mohinim Shritaha. These people are bewildered because they have taken shelter of the Prakriti. And then Krishna in the next verse, he says, Mahatmanastu Mampartha Devim Prakriti Mashritaha Bhajanti Ananamanase Natva Bhutati Mavyam. He says, but there is another person called Mahatma who doesn't take shelter of this Prakriti, but he takes shelter of the Devi Prakriti. And those people are called Mahatmas. So here, this particular thing which Dhenukasura represents, which is the foolish intelligence which is tied to this material nature, is represented by Mogasha and Moga Karmana and Moga Jnana. So because they are attached to this material world, right? So Balaram, by killing Dhenukasura, is actually showing us that this is the one which is preventing us from attaining bhakti. So there are multiple teachings we can take from these verses, and I just noted down two. One of them is when the tal fruits, right? Those tal fruits were there. They were accessible for everybody. But people are not able to get it because there was this obstinate donkey called Dhenukasura who was preventing it from taking us, right? So that is represented by, the bhakti is represented by the fruit. And we are not able to reach that bhakti because it is guarded by this donkey of this obstinate nature of us trying to use this material intelligence to think that we can control everything, right? So that is represented by this story. So this is one particular takeaway from the story, and how this Dhenukasura represents this false intelligence which is tied to this material nature, right? So the second thing which I want to talk about is how Balaram represents the spiritual potency, right? So we celebrated Nityananda Trayodashi yesterday, and we have heard Srila Prabhupada say that Nityananda Prabhu is the representation of Balaram, right? So I was hearing this lecture by Srila Prabhupada given by Prabhupada at Bhubaneswar on the appearance day of Nityananda Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Trayodashi. So he says, Baladeva is the representation of the spiritual strength. So when we read different Greek philosophy and stuff like that, there is this particular philosopher called Aristotle, and you've heard about Plato. So both of them, when they defined in terms of what the purpose of human life is, they say that first thing is physical fitness. So you become physically fit, and then you can think about self-actualization. So Prabhupada, in the first time when he explains this particular thing about Baladev, he says, what is more important is not the physical strength. So you can be physically weak, it doesn't matter. But what is more important is the spiritual strength. So Baladev gives that spiritual strength, and hence Baladev is called Adi Guru. Right? So this spiritual strength, we can think about what is the spiritual strength. I was just meditating on this, and then it hit me that there is, we heard this, we see, whenever we read Bhagavatam, we say this verse, right? Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki srinvatam swakata krishna punya shravana kirtanaha hridayantasto hi abhadrani vidunoti suhrat satam. Says hridayantasto abhadrani. What is those? What happens is when you constantly hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Srinvatam Swakata Krishna, about the glories of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, then this anarthas in the heart, hridayantasto hi abhadrani, all these abhadras in the heart, they get gradually taken away. So Krishna mentions this in multiple places. He says there is this knot within the heart. Not bidyate hridaya grantihi siddhate sarva samshayaha. So all these knots inside the heart have to be taken away before we can actually get bhakti, right? So these knots are represented by anarthas, and how can we get rid of these knots? It's only by the grace of the Guru. So that's why it's very important, and it's emphasized in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Tad viddhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshayanti te jnanam jnanina tattvadarshinaha. So go to a self-realized spiritual master, and by his grace, you will be able to get rid of these anarthas in the heart. And by that, you will be able to attain bhakti. So we are all in this process of anartha nivritti stage, where we are trying to get rid of all the anarthas in our heart. And that happens by the mercy of the Guru. Right, so that's the point I want to connect, where Baladev is the Adi Guru, because so Prabhupada mentions in that lecture, he says that Krishna and Balaram are non-different. Balaram is just an expansion of Krishna, but the only difference is, they say there are two differences. One difference is Krishna wears yellow dhoti, Balaram wears blue dhoti. But the other difference is Balaram is always in the seva bhava. So he is in the mood of serving Krishna at any given time. So we see examples where Balaram comes as, whenever Krishna comes to this material world, he accompanies as well. So when Lord Ramachandra came, Balaram came as Lakshmana. And then when Krishna came, he came as Balarama. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, he came as Nityananda Prabhu. So in all these, one quality you will see is when Lakshmana, he left everything just to be with Ram, just so that he gave up all his pleasures. He just made sure that he's just staying with Lord Ram in all the thicks of all the sufferings he's going through in the forest, right? Similarly, Balaram, he was the elder brother, but he was always trying to serve Krishna. We see there is a purport in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam where Prabhupada explains all these different incarnations from all these different expansions from Krishna, and he says Baladev is the first expansion, and he is the one who gives us spiritual strength. And he explains how Balaram is the person who actually did this Shraddha ceremony when Abhimanyu was killed, because there was nobody available to do the Shraddha ceremony because the Pandavas were completely devastated. So, but Abhimanyu's Shraddha ceremony was performed by Balaram. And it is also mentioned that he is the spiritual master of Duryodhan. But when Balaram left is when Duryodhan was killed. Right, so there is a lot of things. So how Balaram is always in the mood of service of Krishna, and then Nityananda Prabhu we see like how he is a mercy personified. Right, so I heard this beautiful quote. Right, so when Krishna and Balaram they appeared, they killed demons in the Vraja. Right, so they killed all these different demons or the asuras. But when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu appeared, they killed they sat in her heart and they killed all the asuric tendencies which are in our heart. So basically that's the mood with which always and every time when they come, so especially this the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Balaram, we call Karuna Avatar, because they are mercy in personified. Because in this age of Kali, it is very difficult for us to even think about like understanding the Supreme Lord through the traditional process, like either through Vedic wisdom or through Dhyana process or through Ashtanga Yoga process. It's extremely difficult. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu has made it so easy for us to be able to relish this bhakti process, right? So that's the second message. And then, so thinking about this, right? So we always have heard, right? Balaram is the Adi Guru, right? And then we also heard, but the spiritual master is a representation of Balaram. And why is that, right? Have we thought about like why would that be? So the explanation comes from in the Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Guru Ashtakam. So he says, Nikunjayu ratikeli siddhair yayali bir yuktira pikshaniya tatrarti dakshat ativallabhasya vande gurum shri charanaravindam. The spiritual master is expert at understanding these loving, how to set up environment for these loving exchanges between Radha and Krishna. So that is a spiritual master, and he is so expert at it that just by his grace that we'll be able to get the same love for the Supreme Lord, right? So the spiritual master is a representation of Balaram because he's always engaged in serving the Supreme Lord, and because of that the spiritual master is considered a representation of Baladev, and because of spiritual master we'll be able to get rid of all the anarthas in our heart. So those are some of the points I wanted to gather from this particular purport and translation. So it seems to be a very simple translation with very small purports, but this has lifetimes worth of realizations which we can meditate upon. And I want to end with, yesterday was Nityananda Trayadoshi, and I was hearing Srila Prabhupada in the lecture. He's talking about Nityananda Prabhu. He says that everybody in this material world is going through a lot of material sufferings, right? So anybody you ask, the one thing which people say is they're anxious, because they're anxious to know what is going to happen to them tomorrow, day after, what happens 10 years from now, and what happens to my money, what happens to my house, what happens to my children, all these different things, right? But there is only one way we can get rid of this anxiety. And Srila Prabhupada quotes this particular song by Narottama Das Thakur. He says, Nitai Padar Kamala, Koti Chandra Sushitala. He says, there's only one way you can actually get rid of all these different anxieties in this world, which is to catch hold of the lotus feet of Nityananda Prabhu. So we'll sing that song and we'll end today's lecture. Nitai Pada Kamala, Koti Chandra Sushitala, जे चाहाय जगत जुराय निताय पद कमल कोटि चंद्र सुशीतल जे चाहाय जगत जुराय हेनो निताय बिने बाय राधा कृष्ण पाइते नाय दृढ़ कोरी दारो निताय पाय हेनो निताय बिने बाय राधा कृष्ण पाइते नाय दृढ़ कोरी धारो नितार पाय. So he says, Nitai Padakamala Koti Chandra Sushitala. So we've heard that the moonlight is so pleasing, right? So he says there are Koti Chandra Sushitala. There are crores of these moons. And imagine how cool and how beautiful it would be. And that is the Nitai's Padakamala. So if one touches the lotus feet, that is the feeling one gets, which is the cooling nature of thousands and crores of these moons. And Je Chahai Jagata Jurai. So if anybody wants to get rid of this material anxiety, there's only one way. Drida Kori Dara Nitar Pai. The only way is to hold on to the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda with all of one's might. And then Heno Nitai Bhai Bina Radha Krishna Paite Nai. So without getting the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu, one cannot get the mercy of Radha Krishna. So that's the message from this particular song, right? And he says, से संबंध नाही जार भृता जन्म गेलो तार से पशु बोरो दुराचार निताय ना बोलिलो मुके मजिला संसारा सुके विद्या कुले की कोरी बोतार. So it says, anyone who has not established his relationship with Nityananda Prabhu is understood to have spoiled his valuable human birth. Such a human being is actually an uncontrollable animal. Because he never uttered the holy name of Nityananda, he has become merged into so-called material happiness. What can his useless education and family tradition do to help him? So he's comparing person who is not able to understand the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu as an animal, Pashu. And he says, Ahankare matta hoya nitai pada pasariya asatyera satya korimani nitayer koruna habe vraja radha krishna pabe daro nitai charana dukani. Being maddened after false prestige and identification with the body, one is thinking, oh, what is Nityananda? What can he do for me? I don't care. The result is that he is accepting something false to be truth. See the parallel? Dhenukasura is the representation of false intelligence. So here it is accepting something false to be the truth. If you actually want to approach the association of Radha Krishna, you must first achieve the mercy of Lord Nityananda, and when he is merciful towards you, then you will be able to approach Radha Krishna. Therefore, you should firmly grasp the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. Nitayer charana satya tahara sevaka nitya nitai pada sada koro asha narotama boro duki nitai moro koro suki rako ranga charanera pasha. So he says the lotus feet of Nityananda are not illusion, they are fact. One who engages in the transcendental loving service of Nityananda is also transcendental. Always try to catch the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. And Narottama Das is very unhappy. Therefore, I am praying to Lord Nityananda to make me happy. My dear Lord, please keep me close to your lotus feet. So that's the glory of Lord Nityananda. And we have always heard that we should take shelter of Lord Nityananda and approach his lotus feet. So what does it actually mean to approach one's lotus feet? Is to follow his instructions. So the only instruction which Nityananda Mahaprabhu gave is to continuously chant the glories of the Supreme Lord. Chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So with that, I'll conclude my lecture. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity. Hare Krishna.